Hey everybody, Fabs here, and I'm going to talk about my fantasy free agent winners and losers among players who changed teams over the last few weeks. So let's start off with your winners and Tom Brady. He is a huge winner moving from New England to Tampa Bay. Now, if he stayed with the Patriots, considering that offense, Brady might not have been drafted in a lot of 10-team leagues. Now, he's a potential top 10 or 12 quarterback in Tampa Bay with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin to throw the football to, and Bruce Arians has always had a lot of success with his quarterback, so Tom Brady sees his value go up. Same kind of thing with Todd Gurley. I know he's got bad knees. He's only 25 years old. He still was pretty competent from a fantasy perspective in the second half of last season, and he's, at least right now, the featured back for the Atlanta Falcons. If they draft the running back, maybe things change. But on a one-year contract, Todd Gurley's looking like the unquestioned featured runner in Atlanta, so I like him as an RB2 somewhere in the third round. Another winner, this one at the wide receiver position, Stefon Diggs. Now, Diggs isn't going to be a wide receiver 1, but he's going to be a better wide receiver 2. Why? Well, last year in Minnesota, he only had 94 targets. I think he goes well over 100 in Buffalo, and he's also got a good young quarterback in Josh Allen, who's got an absolute hand cannon. So Diggs should be a 4th or 5th round pick. And finally, let's go to Hayden Hurst, right? He was off the fantasy radar over his first couple of years in Baltimore. Now, he's certainly on the radar as a tight end 2, maybe even a low-end tight end 1 in Atlanta. Remember, Austin Hooper is no longer in the mix, so that means there's over 90 available targets in that offense. So where there's winners, there's also losers. And my number 1 loser at the quarterback position, Jameis Winston. Well, Jameis doesn't have a team right now, and there's a good chance he's not going to be a starter in the National Football League in 2020. So he goes from the QB5 with 30 interceptions in Bruce Arians' offense to potentially a backup somewhere else. Maybe Pittsburgh would be a good landing spot. So Jameis at this point, not even draftable. That's very strange. Moving on to the running back position, Melvin Gordon. For right now, I have him as a loser because he was an RB1 in Los Angeles for most of his career. Now I see him as a low-end RB2 or a high-end RB3. There's been reports that he'll remain the bell cow there in Denver, but can we really expect that with Phillip Lindsay also in the mix? I don't know about that. So Melvin Gordon now more of a risk for me, probably a 4th round pick in most fantasy drafts. Moving on to the wide receiver position, Robbie Anderson goes from a guy that everyone seemingly loved as a potential sleeper to really a 4 or a 5 at the wide receiver position and no more than a late round pick. Why? Well, that Panthers offense will funnel through Christian McCaffrey and DJ Moore. He's got to compete with targets with Curtis Samuel as well. So there's a lot of mouths to feed in the offense, and Teddy Bridgewater does not like to throw the football deep. He doesn't do it too often. And where does Robbie Anderson make his hay? As a vertical threat. So now just about a late round pick. And finally, at the tight end position, I mentioned Austin Hooper. He goes from Atlanta, where he was a top 5 tight end last year, to Cleveland with Odell Beckham Jr. and Jarvis Landry and David Njoku and Kareem Hunt. You get my drift? There's a lot of mouths to feed there. So Hooper goes from a top 5 tight end to more of a low-tier tight end 1 and a guy that probably won't get drafted among the top 50 picks. So there you go, my winners and losers among players who have changed teams over the last few weeks. For all of your fantasy needs, be sure to follow at NFL Fantasy.